Pain and Glory, or Dolor y Gloria, the original Spanish title, the latest film made by Pedro Almodovar, is out in cinemas now. It's starring Antonio Banderas and Penelope Cruz. And the film was getting really good buzz during the festival circuit this year, with praise towards the film in general, towards Almodovar's direction, and especially Antonio Banderas' performance. I was really excited to see it, and having finally done so, I can say that all of that praise is wholly deserved. The film is a character study of this aging movie director, Salvador, played brilliantly by Banderas. He's got a myriad of health issues that have plagued him for the better part of his life, and ultimately made him quit directing, as the physical toll of working on movie sets was just too heavy for him. He's now an old bachelor, not working anymore, struggling with this inability to be creative, as well as a lot of things in his past. One of those things is a film that he has made 30 years ago and is now being restored. And we learned that back then he was very unhappy with the performance of the lead actor, and they had a falling out. They haven't spoken since the premiere. Now Salvador reevaluates that film and decides to meet up with the actor Alberto and reconcile, and together with him present the film at a special screening. And as he does so, as he begins to reconcile with the actor, through Alberto he discovers heroin and begins to take it quite regularly. And as all of that and more happens in the present, Salvador is constantly haunted by memories of his early childhood, of being raised by his mother, played by Penelope Cruz, and living in a small village. And that's about as much as I want to say about the story, but there is a whole other wealth to the plot that I just don't want to give away. The gist of it, though, is that this is primarily a film about coming to terms with your past, about aging, and how with that age you have to accept the mistakes and the bad things, but also all of the good things that happened previously. It is a movie that is very, very introspective and quiet and delicate, but it is by no means somber or depressing. Apart from the suffering and pain that is already sort of mentioned in the title, there is a great deal of joy and sort of harmony found in accepting the events that and the life that shapes us. A huge part of why the tone manages to be quite light and, in fact, often even humorous despite all of those serious themes is how the film looks. It is just gorgeous when it comes to the use of color and light, especially. Most of the scenes are shot in the bright of day with really sharp and just clear picture. Further, Almodovar uses color masterfully. In the flashback sequences, he mostly sticks to a lot of white with a bit of blues here and there, clearly signifying Salvador as this tabula rasa, so to speak, as an empty page to be filled with his life experiences still to come. And then in the present day, to contrast that, we have a lot of saturated pastel colors, and they do contrast with the lack of it prior, and visually underline the fact that Salvador is now a fully realized man, someone who has had all those experiences and things that happened to him in his life. Almodovar uses those colors in the clothes of the characters, in the furniture, in the walls of apartments, in the things the characters use. It makes it so that every frame is just filled with it. It's beaming with life. It's absolutely breathtaking. Then there's the music, written especially for the film by Alberto Iglesias, that just matches those tones perfectly. It is thoughtful but playful at the same time, nostalgic but not unhappy. Just brilliant stuff. Then there's the central performance by Banderas, which I just have to talk about because, wow, I was really curious about it, especially after having seen Banderas in live itself just last year. And that movie has shown that the man is aging like fine wine, and he manages to bring he managed to bring a lot of gravitas to that role. He played this sort of father slash mentor figure, this wise, experienced, realized, and confident man. Which is why I was so blown away by the role in Pain and Glory, because it is the polar opposite of that one. He's a very delicate, vulnerable. I even dare say he appears physically smaller and weaker. He plays Salvador with a lot of subtlety, and he isn't afraid to show that weakness and doubt and regrets and, again, pain. He's completely believable throughout the film. He was deservedly honored at the Cannes Festival, and I can see him being one of the top candidates for an Oscar this year. Yeah, the performance isn't as flashy as, say, Taron Egerton in Rocketman, or, judging from the trailers, Joaquin Phoenix in Joker. But it's all the more impressive because of that, because of how much Banderas is able to do and show with so little, with his posture, his reserved movements, his defeated looks, his quiet voice. It's just mesmerizing to see him on the screen. One last thing I want to mention about Pain and Glory is this: it tackles several quite heavy subjects: addiction, drugs, grief, sickness, sexuality, or more specifically, homosexuality. But what struck me was how much grace there was in the approach to every single one of those subjects. In another film, each and every one of them could have easily come to the foreground and dominate the character or even the film itself. But this sort of thing doesn't happen here. Here, those things are all just elements, facets of who Salvador is as a whole, as a human being. No one of those things define him truly and fully, but they sort of all come together to make him. And I thought each of those topics is also treated with remarkable respect and dignity. None of them are used in a judgmental way, but again, also from the other side, none of them also just exist to sort of elevate the character artificially in any way. They are simply pieces of the human puzzle. So, as you may have guessed by now, I loved Pain and Glory. I think it's a wise, poignant, and beautiful film with a terrific central performance. I do believe that because of the subject matter, the theme of getting old and coming to terms with the past, because of that, the older you are as an audience, the more you will understand and enjoy it, which is kind of mirrored also by that plot in the film that I mentioned about Salvador initially not liking his own movie, and then after many years coming to accept it and appreciate it for what it was, much like other elements of his past. So if you realize that all that the wisdom that permeates from the film and try to really understand it, I truly believe that it's impossible not to love this film.